Welcome back everyone, it is Mike from ManaHoarders. In this video we are bringing you a commander deck tech for a brand new commander from Phyrexia All Will Be One, Drivnod Carnage Dominus. You can cast this commander for 3 and 2 black. You get a legendary 8/3 Phyrexian Horror. The ability reads, if a creature dying causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time. If this sounds familiar, you're probably reminiscing on Teysa Karlov. With the second ability, you can pay either a black mana or 2 life twice, those are the Phyrexian symbols. You can exile 3 creature cards from your graveyard and put an indestructible counter on Drivnod Carnage Dominus. Before we dive into the deck, let's go over a few key points. First up, the final price for this deck came in at $104.81. This does include the price of our commander and all of our lands. Now, do bear in mind, we still are in pre-order season, so the price of this commander could swing wildly. Also bear in mind that the prices of these cards could vary greatly depending on the quality of the cards you purchase, the vendor you use, and a variety of other factors. If you like what you see and want to see more of the decks we put out, be sure to hit that subscribe button because we have plenty more on the way. Now let's go ahead and dive into the deck. First up are our artifacts. Altar of Ball. We included it for the tap ability. We can pay 2 and a black and tap it to exile a creature we control. Then return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield, but we can only activate this as a sorcery. Caged Sun enters, we choose a color, creatures we control of the chosen type get +1/+1, and whenever a land's ability causes us to add 1 or more mana of the chosen color, we add 2 instead. Crowded Crypt can tap for a black. Whenever a creature we control dies, it gets a corpse counter. We can also pay 4 and 2 black and tap it, sacrifice it, and get a 2/2 black zombie creature token with Decayed for each corpse counter on it. Mind Stone taps for a colorless. We can also pay 1 and tap it and sacrifice it to draw. Soul Ring taps for 2 colorless mana. Weatherlight completed, it has flying. As long as it has 4 or more Phyresis counters on it, it's a Phyrexian creature in addition to its other types. And whenever a creature we control dies, it gets a Phyresis counter. Then we draw a card if it has 7 or more Phyresis counters, and if it doesn't, we scry 1. In Witch's Cauldron, we can pay 1 in the black and tap it to sacrifice a creature. Then we can gain a life and draw a card. Moving on to our creatures, we do have some legends helping out our commander. Ayara, First of Locthwain. Whenever she or another black creature enters the battlefield under our control, each opponent loses 1 life and we gain 1 life. We can also tap her and sacrifice another black creature to draw a card. And a personal favorite of mine, Sir Conrad the Grim. Whenever another creature dies, or a creature card is put into a graveyard from anywhere other than the battlefield, or a creature card leaves our graveyard, he deals 1 damage to each opponent. We can also pay 1 in the black and each player mills a card. And for our not-so-legendary creatures, we have probably the most recognizable Aristocrats card, Blood Artist. Whenever Blood Artist or another creature dies, target player loses 1 life and we gain 1 life. Butcher of Malakir. Whenever it or another creature we control dies, each opponent sacrifices a creature. Carrier Thrall. Whenever it dies, we get a 1/1 Eldrazi Scion that we can sack for a colorless mana. Carrion Feeder gives us our free sack outlet. Whenever we sacrifice a creature, it gets a 1/1 counter. Dockside Chef. We can pay 1 in the black, sacrifice an artifact or a creature to draw a card. Doomed Dissenter. Whenever it dies, we get a 2/2 black zombie creature token. Driver of the Dead. Whenever it dies, we return target creature card with CMC 2 or less from our graveyard to the battlefield. Falconwrath Noble. Whenever it or another creature dies, target player loses 1 and we gain 1. Gixian Puppeteer. Whenever we draw our second card each turn, each opponent loses 2 life and we gain 2 life. Also, whenever it dies, we return another target creature card with mana value 3 or less from the graveyard to the battlefield. Grey Merchant of Asphodel. Whenever it enters the battlefield, each opponent loses X life, where X is a devotion to black, and we gain life equal to the life lost this way. Grim Haruspex. Whenever another non-token creature we control dies, we can draw. Gurgling Anointer. Whenever we draw our second card each turn, it gets a 1/1 counter, and whenever it dies, we can return another target creature card with mana value less than Gurgling Anointer's power from our graveyard to the battlefield. Harvester of Souls. When any non-token creature dies, we draw a card. Massacre Worm. Whenever it enters the battlefield, creatures your opponents control get -2/-2 until end of turn, and whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, that player loses 2 life. Midnight Reaper. Whenever a non-token creature we control dies, it deals 1 damage to us and we draw a card. Mere Sire. Whenever it dies, we get a 1/1 Mere token. Nested Shambler. Whenever it dies, we get X tapped 1/1 green squirrel tokens, where X is Nested Shambler's power. Ogre Slumlord. Whenever another non-token creature dies, we get a 1/1 rat token. Orzhov Enforcer has Death Touch and Afterlife 1, so it dies and we get a 1/1 Spirit token. Pond of Ulamog. Whenever it or another non-token creature we control dies, we get a 0/1 Eldrazi Spawn token. Phyrexian Vivisector. Whenever another creature we control dies, we can scry 1. Sanguinary Priest. Whenever another creature we control dies, it deals 1 damage to any target. When Shambling Ghast dies, it can put -1/-1 on target creature an opponent controls, or it can give us a treasure token. Sifter of Skulls. Whenever another non-token creature we control dies, we get a 1/1 Eldrazi Scion. Vindictive Vampire. Whenever another creature we control dies, it deals 1 damage to each opponent and we gain 1 life. Viscera Seer is another free sack outlet. We can sacrifice a creature to scry 1. And Zulaport Cutthroat. Whenever it or another creature we control dies, we can drain 1 and gain 1. Moving on to our enchantments. Black Market. Whenever a creature dies, it gets a charge counter, and at the beginning of our pre-combat main phase, we get a black mana for each charge counter on it. Nurgle's Rot. We'll enchant a creature an opponent controls, and when that creature dies, we can return Nurgle's Rot to our hand and get a 1/3 black demon creature token. Open the Graves. Whenever a non-token creature we control dies, we get a 2/2 black zombie creature token. Phyrexian Reclamation. We can pay 1 in the black and pay 2 life to return target creature card from our graveyard to our hand. Shadows of the Past. Whenever a creature dies, we can scry 1. And Vampiric Rites. We can pay 1 in the black, sacrifice a creature to gain a life and draw a card. Moving on to our instants, Altar's Reap. We can sacrifice a creature to draw 2. Ashnod's Intervention. Until end of turn, target creature gets +2/+0, and whenever it would die or be put into exile, it goes back to our hand. Costly Plunder. We can sacrifice an artifact or a creature to draw 2. Dark Ritual gives us 3 black mana. Deadly Dispute. We can sack an artifact or a creature to draw 2 and get a treasure. Defile gives target creature -1/-1 for each swamp we control. Dredge allows us to sack a land or a creature to draw a card. Go for the Throat can destroy target non-artifact creature. Reckoner's Bargain. We can sack an artifact or a creature, we gain life equal to the sacrificed permanent's mana value, and we draw 2. Supernatural Stamina. Target creature gains +2/+0 in gains. Whenever this creature dies, return it to the battlefield tapped under its owner's control. Tragic Slip can give target creature -1/-1, but as long as it has the Morbid ability, it will give -13/-13 instead. Dying Malice. Whenever the creature dies, it returns to the battlefield tapped under its owner's control with a 1/1 counter. Village Rites. We can sacrifice a creature and draw 2. Moving on to our sorceries. Blood for Bones. We will sacrifice a creature, then return a creature card from our graveyard to the battlefield, and put another one from our graveyard into our hand. Bone Shards. We will sacrifice a creature or discard a card to destroy target creature or planeswalker. Decree of Pain. Destroys all creatures, they can't be regenerated, and we draw a card for each creature destroyed this way. Dread Return returns target creature card from our graveyard to the battlefield. Forever Young. We can put any number of target creature cards from our graveyard on top of our library, and then we draw. Mutilate. All creatures get -1/-1 for each swamp we control. Read the Bones. We can scry 2, draw 2, and lose 2 life. Unearth. We put target creature card with mana value 3 or less from our graveyard onto the battlefield. Victimize. We choose 2 target creature cards in our graveyard, sacrifice a creature, and if we do, they come back to the battlefield tapped. And last but not least is our mana base. I have to say, one of my favorite parts of running a monocolor deck is the fact that you only need 1 color of mana, so we are going to be running 35 basic swamps. And just like that, we've reached the end of this Commander deck tech for Drivnod Carnage Dominus. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe, tell your friends about us, and leave a comment down below. Let us know what commanders you'd like to see us build around in the future. We have a very exciting year ahead of us with lots of awesome commanders on the way. I really appreciate all of your support.